I'm going to preface this with one thing. I love sales, but sales is overrated. Um, if you have a product that people genuinely crave, you don't have to sell it a ton. You still have to sell it. Obviously, it's not just going to be a walk in the park for the most part with most businesses, product services. But a lot of people think you have to be this great salesperson because you need to persuade somebody, and that's not really how sales works. If you create a product that it's a great fit for a very niche group of people, it's more about opening their eyes to how it can help them rather than trying to persuade. So I love sales, but at the end of the day, it's not the icing on the cake.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Expert. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown with several businesses into 7 and 8-figure businesses, as well as a founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours? Just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Austin McCulloh. And Austin, we're going to be talking about a few things, including LinkedIn process or prospecting, the process of productizing knowledge, and also a bit about how you can go about setting up SaaS products to sell that productized knowledge. So should be some great conversations. And with that much as introduction, welcome to the podcast, Austin.
Thank you for bringing me on. I'm excited to have this talk.
Absolutely. So I just gave kind of a quick intro to kind of the areas we're going to hit on, but and as a reminder to the audience, so Austin was on our sister podcast, The Inventive Journey. So if you want to go hear his full journey, kind of how he got to where he's at today, make sure to go check that out. But for those that haven't had a chance to catch that episode or just looking for a quick introduction, just take a minute or two and introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. So name is Austin McCulloh. The business that I'm currently building that we're about to launch is Reply Assist. Actually, we just got some hats recently, so pretty proud of that. But anyways, what Reply Assist is, it's a prospecting tool for financial advisors. A lot of them, they have to do outreach on LinkedIn as well as respond to messages, do follow-up tasks, just to get meetings scheduled. The point of Reply Assist is to do all of the work for them. We'll get into details more on that. Previously, I've been in entrepreneurship for 7 years. I had a business in college that started and failed. It was an online hiring agency. That taught me a lot, but I'm glad that we moved on from that. The next business started as Austin McCulloh Advising. It was a coaching business, but we weren't finding any traction. It molded into a marketing agency. We ended up rebranding it to Lead Goals Accelerator, and we sold that in February of 2023, so about a year ago. And so we've just been working on Reply Assistant, so that's why I'm excited for this launch.
Awesome. Well, sounds like some great things to kept you busy in the past, and also some or led to where you're at to today. So, kind of with that as a great introduction, diving into some of the topics at hand. I mean, or so maybe hitting on the first one, which would be a little bit of LinkedIn prospecting. And I think that, on the one hand, that one's something that I'm a big believer in LinkedIn, and I think that it provides a lot of opportunities and can connect you with a lot of people and make direct connections. And on the other hand, you also have a lot of people that blast you with a lot of messages, and otherwise sometimes it's not always wanted, or you're looking to just say, I just want to make real connections. And so kind of how do you find that balance, or how do you set up to do good, you can do any sort of prospecting, but do good LinkedIn prospecting, or kind of any tips or thoughts as to how businesses should go about approaching that?
Yeah, a few thoughts on that one. Really good question, by the way. What's coming to mind first is not enough sales professionals or anybody doing outreach in that capacity. They don't have a niche target market. And so they're taking this just templated message and sending out to anybody who they hope will respond back. And then there's no personalization to it. And so it just seems really pushy. You're blasting it to a ton of people who it's not even the appropriate message for. And so if everybody in a sales position, whether it's financial advisor, insurance agent, whatever, realtor, I think I'm really clear on who they're targeting, like what state, what city, what job title, the industry, the company that somebody works for, et cetera. That allows you to create a much more personalized message, which makes the conversation actually be real rather than just some people run these automated campaigns and they can't send 100 invites anymore on LinkedIn like they used to be able to do a few years ago. But If people actually had a specific niche to go after, and if you have any questions, let me know. But if somebody had a specific niche, it just allows you to gain traction, which then also doesn't bother the prospects that you're contacting.
No, I think that makes sense. In a high level, though, I got a couple follow-up questions to that. So I agree. One of the differences is if you're drilling down on a niche, and no, first of all, you should, whether or not it's LinkedIn or prospecting or anywhere else, know who your customer is or who they should be, and or target towards them. In other words, doing the shotgun approach. Most of the time, you're going to spend a lot of time, money, and effort reaching out to people that aren't interested, and more often than not, are bothering them or making an I don't know, an enemy, but an unhappy person that's unlikely to use your service because they're not the right customer, the right niche. Now, let's say, for instance, you do find out, okay, I'm going to target X, Y, and Z company or X, Y, and Z individual. These are going to be the type of individuals that are going to want my product or services that are going to do it. How do you go about, maybe specific to LinkedIn where we started out there, how do you go about even identifying those people within LinkedIn, or how do you kind of tailor your message and your who you send it to and tailor the message to them?
Oh, I could answer that in a lot of different ways. Good question. So let's say, we'll just take financial advisors because that's the group that I'm always working with. Let's say a financial advisor figures out that they like working with nurses. Okay, so maybe they've worked with nurses in the past. They like working with them. Let's say the financial advisor lives in California. Maybe it's Orange County, California. So based on LinkedIn, I'm actually, just so I'm not fumbling around with it, I'm opening up LinkedIn really quick right now. So what you would do is you'd go into the search bar, and I'll keep this brief, but you could go type in nurse and do something called a Boolean search, which is where you put quotes around the word. So do the quote, type in nurse, end quote, because that's going to make the search a lot more specific. And then from there, you could select people, you could select Orange County. And then another tip that a lot of people don't look into is if you're trying to expand your network, you could go after second-degree connections, third-degree connections. As much as you can, only go after the second-degree connections, because that means you have at least one mutual connection, which means there's one more point of commonality. So if you're trying to reach out to somebody who's in your third degree, you have no connections in common, so you're more likely to be a stranger to them, which means they're less inclined to actually accept it. Now, on the messaging part, and I'll keep this brief as well, and then just ask whatever you need from there.
Sure.
Take their job title, so nurse. Take whatever experience you have, and actually, one quick caveat: the target market that you reach out to, you always want to have some type of connection with them. Like, it could be something as thin as, if you're a financial advisor and your mother was a nurse, if you're reaching out to nurses, you can use that as a point of commonality, because what these small points of commonality do, when you want to have as many as possible, they build trust. That's why you want to show the relatability there. But anyways, to get back on track with the messaging, you want to reference those points of commonality in your message. You don't need to go pitch them on something, but if you're reaching out to nurses in Orange County, you could say, I live in Orange County. If your mother was a nurse or your father was a nurse, whoever, my mother was a nurse. I really respect the work that you're doing. Wanted to reach out, kind of pick your brain on X topic. That is so much more, and that's not even a crazy personalized message, but that alone seems like it was meant for the recipient. And there are too many people in a sales capacity who are just focused on themselves, and that's why they send these general messages, and that's why they don't get any traction with them.
So no, and I think that's some great advice and some great actionable takeaways. Now I'll follow up. One of the things that I think is, I don't know, I'll say controversial. I don't know if that's quite the right word, but on LinkedIn is the level of automation versus a level of human. In other words, there's tools, whether or not you leverage them or use them, that can automate a lot of things on LinkedIn, and I'm not promoting them, nor am I putting them down. I think that there may or may not be a place for them, and I'll keep my opinion to that. But now you say, okay, you can go everything from automating everything to where you're basically hands off and that you have it all automated for you. You can also go to the other extreme where you do everything, human or fully human, yourself, where you're doing all the searching, you're doing or writing custom messages, you're doing the outreach, you're doing the follow-up, or you could do somewhere in between. And so any thoughts or guidances as you're doing the prospects, should it be zero automation, full automation, somewhere in between? It depends. Kind of walk us through that a bit.
So for everybody listening, I'm obviously biased since I've used automation a ton, and obviously the software that I'm building is to reduce the human involvement in the prospecting to ideally zero. But I'm not ignorant, so I see the flip side of why people like doing the manual outreach. I think what a lot of it comes down to, Devin, is what type of sales you're doing.
Hmm.
Like if you only need to go close 4 deals per year, sure, go do manual outreach. Because then you could go do extensive research on the prospect. You might only have, I don't know, 25 prospects throughout the entire year. You could go figure out what their favorite sport is. You could figure out research from nowadays. You can find anything on Google. You could probably look into like family life and see what they prefer. Like I one of the books that I like a lot, it talks about how he ended up golfing at a really nice golf course. He bought a golf ball from the golf course and he sent it to one of the prospects. Like that level of personalization, like that's not automated at scale, but it's that individual touch.
Hmm.
But on the flip side, um, you could take again financial advisors and they have a lot more than 25 prospects. Like a typical financial advisor has at least a couple hundred clients, maybe not at least, but at least 100 clients. And so they're not only focusing on this small group of people, as well as you're gonna on any type of sale in any type of sales capacity on LinkedIn, on any other platform as well, you're gonna have a lot of rejection. So that's why I'm a fan of automation, is because actually I hadn't thought about this for a while, but it's coming back to me. If you bank on a very small group of people to be interested in working with you, they might all not be interested, and then you take it personally. You think you did a bad job, but that could have been a just very small group of people. It could have been the timing of year. So the cool part about automation is it speeds up the process to get you talking with people that want to talk with you. If people
Hmm.
don't like automation, I completely get why, but it just speeds up that front end so that you can actually focus on the human piece as much as possible. So like you even look at reply assist. The reason why we want to reduce the prospecting, the follow-ups, no salesperson likes doing follow-ups. I could have a full conversation on that in the scheduling meetings, is because it expedites the process for the financial advisor to be getting on a call, an introduction call with this prospective client. Does that answer the
Hmm.
question?
Yeah, no, I think that answers a lot of questions, and I'll give my limited philosophy, which is,
Hmm?
I think that automation has its place and it doesn't have its place in the sense that if automation really should allow or free you up for having greater human interactions where they're needed. So in other words, if it's really doing a lot of outreach to make that initial connection, and then from there it's the sales processes, you really should have a one-on-one conversation, then great, use automation to make those original connections and get things scheduled. But on the other hand, to your point, if hey, the automation is maybe I only have 25 prospects, and so I'm doing the manual outreach, but then to keep following them up and keep trickling along and keeping in touch with them, I use some automation there. I think that there are places for automation, but you should look for where it fits within your company. Now,
Yeah.
I always loved actionable tools, and so to the degree you're willing to pull back the curtain or give a little bit of the secret sauce, so you have your software that that you guys are doing, Reply Assist. Any
Yep.
other ones if people are looking to for whatever level of automation or kind of whatever level that they're looking to supplement their business? Anything that people should be aware of or that they should look into if they're wanting to kind of explore things a bit?
For the LinkedIn outreach or what, for what
Sure,
specific?
let's go with that one.
Honestly, what I would recommend is this isn't completely LinkedIn outreach, but I don't think enough people play around with OpenAI's ChatGPT enough. I mean,
Hmm.
like, it's funny, even with building Reply Assist, if I have a question, like, there's something that I'll be working with my CTO, Justin, and we'll be using a tool called like VS Code for putting together our software. I'm not a technical person, everybody, so I'm going to keep it at that. Otherwise, I'm going to make no sense. But sometimes we'll have a question with something in the code base not working, and so we'll go put that into ChatGPT. It's just
Hmm.
like it's a great assistant that everybody should be leveraging. Like sometimes, here's a good one. Here's a really good one. Sometimes with putting together this chatbot, I've used ChatGPT to put together. I'll say, give me 25 responses that a prospect would say to a financial advisor on LinkedIn when they're not interested to talk right now. And it gives me examples so I don't have to think from scratch. Like I've done so much prospecting for anybody. Actually, none of you would know this. I've done about 33,000 LinkedIn invites that I've sent on the platform, responded to 12,000 plus individual conversations, scheduled over 700 intro calls. So like I've gone through the reps a lot, but mine's still a human brain. So it's just like not everything's coming to me super quickly the way that ChatGPT is. I would go recommend other tools, but honestly, that's plenty of information for people to start off with. So I'd just start there, especially because ChatGPT now, this is a lot of people don't know this. They rolled out a GPT store, which is kind of like the App Store for iPhone, but for OpenAI, being able to use AI tools, so artificial intelligence in different areas of business.
Awesome. No, I think that's definitely a great starting point for people to jump in and start exploring things. So shifting gears just a little bit, because one of the other topics that we touched on and talked a little bit about, but before the show as well, was the idea of, a lot of people have a lot of knowledge, and you do get a lot of experience in different fields or otherwise explore things, and then one way that you or make money from that is you offer it as a service, and you can go out and whether you're an attorney, whether you're a lead prospector, whether you're marketing or sales or any number of things, you can offer that as a service. And the other one is you can also start to productize that knowledge and sell that, whether it's as a SaaS product or as a course or some other, sell it as a book or video series or whatever. But how do you, what's that process, or how do you go about productizing knowledge or making that so that you can not just have to have a one-on-one, or you can reach a greater audience?
That's a really good question. Honestly, I'm being about a year into building Reply Assist. I'm honestly still learning, but one thing I do want to say, this is a really important one that I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't get right. Like, this is something I wish I would have learned sooner. It's so much more upfront work than people realize. It's worth it, but if you are trying to take, like, the difference between a software business and a service-based business is, with a service, it's ongoing work. So like you have to do the upfront work to go put together like a course, but like for us, we were using other lead generation softwares on LinkedIn and helping our clients use those softwares, but we weren't creating the software. Whereas if you're creating the product, you have to pay attention to every single detail that comes into it. Even something as simple as when you click a button, like, when you hover over a button and sometimes the mouse turns from like the cursor to the hand icon, those little details, every single little detail. Or here's another one that we're factoring in that we had to work on with Reply Assist is the whole point of getting the calls is to get calls scheduled for our customers. So going from the prospecting to follow-ups, whatever, get the call scheduled. But then we need to factor in turning the chatbot off once the call is scheduled, because from there, it'll likely go from an intro call to a closing call. And that's more of an individual basis. That the point that I'm getting at is, I kind of lost train of thought for a second, transparently. But anyways, the point that I'm getting at is you have to factor in every single detail, even like what I was describing before. And that all flows throughout. And you have to be very preventative, because you have to think of problems that could happen, the problems that could pop up. But anyways, that's why it's so important to start in like a service-based business. Now, I'm enjoying Reply Assist more than Awesome McCulloh advising when I was actually working on it, because it's a different kind of work. And obviously I'm just realizing that I like it. But I don't regret ever having Awesome McCulloh advising, because actually doing the work is what allowed me to have the knowledge to productize. So I'm trying to think of a good way to summarize it as well. When you are productizing it, you're thinking of like the most basic frameworks of how you were good at what you were doing, because then to put that into a software, it needs to be very black and white. It's cut and dry, because software is all code. I mean, what is it, Devin? At the end of the day, it's like ones and zeros. Isn't that all that is?
Sure.
So
Yep.
you need to be very specific, and then you need to continue to iterate. Yeah, I could go a lot of directions with that, but I'm still kind of formulating the thought in my mind. That's why the answer wasn't super clear.
No,
So,
you're good, and that is always insightful to kind of see how the bread is made, or the pudding's made behind the scenes. So it's definitely was a insightful answer. So one thing to kind of follow up on that. So you guys are software as a service, which seems like that's a good avenue for a lot of things, as you're productizing knowledge in a lot of different forms. And that can be everything from you're taking your knowledge and building it into a software platform. It can be, hey, making this into a series where people can learn from me, but I'm not having to do it one-on-one. But kind of how did you, maybe within, your scope or what you guys are doing, how did you kind of convert LinkedIn prospecting, doing those type of things, from more of a hands-on service that you guys do individually or you do manually, to taking it to more of a SaaS product? How did you kind of go about productizing that?
yeah, I was talking with my mom about this recently. So last January, a little over a year ago, I was actually on a family trip with my parents, my sister, and I remember going back to the hotel, or not back to the hotel, leaving the hotel to go to the airport in Mexico. And I remember being in the van, and I was talking to my mom. I was like, I've helped a lot of financial advisors with their prospecting, like help put together their scripts and how to respond to prospects, but there's still a lot of human involvement. And so I go, what if I could just take all this prospecting experience that I've done, because I've done more prospecting than most people, and instead of trying to coach people on it, they could just benefit by using the software alone. So it's funny, actually. I don't think we've talked about this, but I remember a couple days before this whole van experience, I was actually using ChatGPT. I could go find the threads. It's kind of cool to go look back. And I was looking how to create a sales chatbot and looking into details like that. It was mentioning different software tools. And that was the inspiration for it, because I like, if you could think it, it's possible. And so I was like, how would the chatbot need to respond? What would the tone need to be like? What's the end goal of it? And then through working with Justin and piecing everything together, the AI, the LinkedIn component, which the LinkedIn component alone is a beast for many reasons. But another key part as well to finish up the topic is, here's a good one, is a lot of financial advisors, they use a CRM and then they use LinkedIn and they keep their notes in another place. Like, it's very decentralized. And then it's hard for them to have a good sales process because it's all sporadic. Like, I remember having past clients who would keep track of all the people to follow up with on a notebook. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, you use software, keep it in one spot. It's easier to type it out, update your notes. So anyways, that was because of my experience. I thought about my prospecting, what was annoying doing it, like how I think I have carpal tunnel from typing so much over the years. But anyways, taking all that and anything that was annoying or burdensome, trying to have software do that instead. That's why we even had to think about like due date detection to make sure that when a prospect says like follow up in 3 months, it knows to follow up in 3 months. So it's every little detail of what was annoying and that humans would previously have to do, trying to factor that in with AI, other software, so that the human doesn't have to do it anymore.
No, makes sense. Sounds like it was kind of one where, hey, can I take what I've figured out in my head and then put it into a software product and make it something that's usable on a greater scale? So definitely sounds like a fun adventure to go down. So with that, we're already reaching towards the end of the podcast. Feels like we just started, but definitely been a fun conversation and a lot of things learned. But as we wrap up this episode, I always like to wrap up with one question. So we're going to jump to that now. So the question I'd like to wrap up with is, within your industry, what is the biggest myth and why is it wrong?
So I'm going to preface this with one thing. I love sales, but sales is overrated. If you have a product that people genuinely crave, you don't have to sell it a ton. You still have to sell it. Obviously, it's not just going to be a walk in the park for the most part with most businesses, product services. But a lot of people think you have to be this great salesperson because you need to persuade somebody. And that's not really how sales works. If you create a product that it's a great fit for a very niche group of people, it's more about opening their eyes to how it can help them rather than trying to persuade. So I love sales, but at the end of the day, it's not the icing on the cake.
No, I like that. I think that's a great myth to dispel or a great takeaway. So perfect. Well, now as we do wrap towards the end of the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Basically 2 ways. Look up Austin McCulloh. So Austin, last name McCulloh, McCulloh. You can find me on all social medias. And then replyassist.com. So www.replyassist.com. Pretty straightforward.
Awesome. We'll definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, check or support a great SaaS product, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So, with that, thank you again, Austin, for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you, the listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So, just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. Couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And along that note, if you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Austin, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you, Devin.